Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to yet another podcast on business networking on Thinkly Talks. I have a very special guest today. It's almost become a cliche, but it's a fact. This person is very special. I've known him now for almost 8 years. Uh, Ever since I have expanded my horizons in BNI, I came into contact with our guest today. So, our guest today is the area director of BNI in Mumbai Northeast, Mr. T.S.Subramanian, also fondly called Subuu. I think 99% of the people with the name Subramaniam would be called Subuu, but this Subuu is special. A quick introduction of Subuu. Subuu is a mechanical engineer from VJTI and has a marketing management degree from NMIMS. He has over 30 years of MNC corporate work experience, out of which 27 years were with various European MNCs as country head. In his entrepreneurial role, he supports SME startups and MNCs as a mentor, strategist, and investment enabler. His company is called CEO Mitra, which helps entrepreneurs focus on their business while Subuu works with them as an outsourced CEO to help them scale up both on turnover as well as on profits. He is also an organizational change maker certified by the Semco Style Institute of Netherlands and Fish Philosophy of USA. His latest brand is called Pitch Hair, which helps startups find investments to fuel their dreams. He strongly believes in the philosophy, don't allow the past define your future. And he plans to, in his role, to enable over 100,000 entrepreneurs to meet their own dreams. Welcome to this podcast, Subuu.
Hey, Vipul, thank you. Yes, we have been knowing each other for years now. I think first time I really met you was at my Jibam factory,
That's
uh,
right.
where we tried to discuss about how we can do a lot of PR work, and I already heard a lot about you at that time. Yeah,
Right.
so life has been a continuous journey where I think the LTRT we keep on bumping on each other. So
That's right. That's right.
great, and thank you
And
for the wonderful introduction. Thanks a lot.
that's right. And you've been an inspiration, Subbu sir, for the kind of things you've done in your life. And I've always wanted to pick your brains and ask you these questions. And this is a great opportunity, I think, that can I ask you all those questions officially because you've given me the time to ask you.
Yeah.
So, I was going through your profile and, I can see that you have all the right boxes ticked. You're a BE mechanical engineer and from VJTI, an MBA, with a flourishing corporate career and a long career, if I may say, with MNCs. Anybody in your place would have been, put up their boots and happily relaxed. But you chose to become an entrepreneur and take risks. I mean, what was your motivation behind doing this?
So yeah, so Vipul, you have known me, from Jibam. So I want to take you a little bit behind. Perhaps you don't
Sure,
know what happened before.
sure.
So I used to be head of sales and marketing at the age of 29. I was actually offered to be the managing director for Mettler Toledo by Andreas Werle, who was the Swiss managing director of the Indian subsidiary.
Right.
But he went abroad and then he came back and he said, "Hey, Subbu, it didn't work." The board wanted somebody who was more international experience, and it was true that maybe I lacked an international experience. But then I was like, let's see what's happening, and a new guy came into the company, and I was looking at him and trying to understand what is it missing in me. But honestly,
Mhm.
I was too ethical, and I don't want to go into details, but I just couldn't sit on the same desk with him. I decided to
Okay.
move out, and in those days, it was really hard to find a CEO role, and at that age was truly difficult. Today, you have CEOs at 25, 27 also.
Correct. Correct.
Those days, you were like 45, 48, and then you had to be a CEO. And I happened to be at Interpack and I went to one of the Mettler's competitor, which is Reserva from Germany. And one of the Asia heads from there was standing there. I know he's a huge guy. I remember the Reinhold Gilbert, and he said, "Hey, can we have a conversation?" I said, "Why not?" And I went up to him. We had an
Yeah.
interesting conversation, and he said, "I want to be in India. I want to be, and this is the motivation for what I'm doing today. This is the starting point for what I'm doing today." Okay.
Right.
So the intention was there, but he discussed with his people, and when he came back, he said, "Subbu, we can't start a subsidiary now, okay? But I would love that you become a distributor for me." And I actually come from a
Okay.
very moderate middle class kind of family, and no big money stashed away and all that. So I
Right.
was in two minds, and my family was very much against. But somehow, I got into this journey of entrepreneurship when I was 30. Okay. And I started
Okay.
a company called Waybiz India Private Limited, and we ran it beautifully for almost 18 months. And then at the end of 18 months,
Hmm.
turnover is good, profit is very good, but no cash in the company because all the cash was stuck into stocks and the outstandings and so.
Inventory. Inventory.
Yeah, so I mean the market was organized retail, and when they started with LCs, and they ended up after 18 months when Reliance and DMart started expanding like crazy, and we ended up with 180 days payment terms in INR, and that also they won't pay on time. Even today, retail is a big
Yeah.
challenge with people. Uh,
Correct.
so at that time, I had read two books. Okay, one was I mean I read many books, but at that time, those difficult days. I read two books. One was by Ricardo Semler called
Maverick.
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other one was Fish Philosophy. Okay. And this impacted my head so much. And it so happened that I got fortunate. And a lot of people around me said, including my mom, said, "Why are you so egoistic? Go back to work." And we literally had no money at all in the family. So I said, okay, let me get my 18 people out first. And I was actually planning to do that 2 weeks later when I got a call from Germany, and they wanted to come and see what's happening in India. New managing director, new perspective. Fortunately for me, he came to India. He saw what we were doing. He was so impressed. He said, "Subbu, why can I buy your company?" And I was I started flying, and it was like immediately signed a deal with them, and I never looked back. I never worked for money as such after that. I always worked for the joy of doing something interesting. But I got stuck with that company for almost 11 years, and I became lazy. Let's put it that way. Okay. But
Okay.
during that transition, there was a company called Meyer and Vidono, no, who came from Germany, and they're still operating in Delhi, but they've been recently bought over by Kiosk Consulting. They help foreign companies come to India, and they have been expanding, expanding, expanding. I've been watching their growth all this time, and but I got lazy thanks to the good money that was coming in, good holidays taken all over the world, and so on. There was no need for that entrepreneurial thing again coming up, and then I moved to Jibam, which and
Yeah.
there actually I was looking for vendors, and that's when I realized that I heard that word ethical somewhere when I went to one of the BNI meetings with Satish Agadi. I don't know whether you know Satish Agadi.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so he took me there when I was with Bizarre, and that stuck me and said, I need ethical vendors. So that's how I joined BNI. And over the past about, let's say, 11 years, I've been watching BNI guys, age change, transform. Earlier, I used to see people with 15 years, 20 years, entrepreneurial kind of experience, age group was 40, 45. And then suddenly, last 2.5, 3 years, I'm seeing people of 24, 25. And that gave me a complex. And I said, I need to be an entrepreneur, at least. So,
Right.
and I'm running on a let's say, a zero risk because I'm putting away money into the enterprise, which I don't need it for my own self. Okay, so it's a whatever I'm doing is bootstrap for me. So today I thought, what could I be doing? And I've been seeing these entrepreneurs. Most of them they have brilliant ideas.
Right.
Okay, and they're focused on a product, but they lose out when they have to look at the challenge of generating sales,
Correct.
and that's where I think I come in, and try to help them generate better sales and better, let's say, profitability and so on. So that's the story that I carried. And now my focus is to try and also bring these small MNCs also into India. Because I know what mistakes I did, whether it was with Mitra, whether it was with Bizerba, with Jibam, and the last enterprise seal. So these four organizations have taught me as managing director what could go wrong or what could go right. And that's the recipe that I want to bring to the small SME startups. And I think it'll help them pass through a lot of obstacles more easily.
Correct.
And that's the value add that I want to bring. And that motivates me a lot now. And I see that working in a couple of interactions that I've been doing with even with PNI members. It's really helpful. Yeah.
So typically, what are the strategies that you recommend to entrepreneurs if they want to achieve better top line and bottom line growth?
So these are things that I didn't do too. Okay, I must admit that when I'm
Correct.
talking about this, these are things that I also have not done. Yeah.
So yeah, so my query was, how do you? I mean, what are the kind of strategies that you recommend to entrepreneurs if they want to look at, improving their top line, bottom line? Is there something that you commonly suggest everybody, or how do you go about it?
Yeah, so I want to combine my entrepreneurial experience of 18 months and then combine this with that 20, 21 years of manager director experience in this company. So what normally
That's
happens is, as an entrepreneur, you start with a huge amount of passion with what you want to do, okay?
correct.
And you do not focus on the why of why you're doing it. Many times entrepreneurs do not get into setting up a vision. They don't do mission value creation on the company. So let's say, for example, you go out on a journey somewhere. You first thing you do is you put a Google map on, and then get a route how to read there. So I
How to
always
reach?
recommend that the first thing anyone should start always get your team together and put a vision value system in place. Because you get stuck many times in your journey, and this is something like you go back to the value system and say, where does it map, where does it meet? And that's something that one very important thing I want to suggest to people. Okay.
Right.
The other thing is they struggle on funding. uh,
Correct.
they bootstrap themselves, and then they think that this is going to get successful in 8 months. So I recommend that if they have in mind 8 months, they should multiply it by 2 or multiply by 2.5 and
Correct.
plan for funding and cash flow to that extent. Otherwise, it's all the 8 months goes into that. Next thing is, I see they hire talent, but they hire talent based on their pockets,
Right.
not based on what they want delivered as value to the company. Okay. So, for example, I'm good in sales, but if I want to set up a SaaS company, I need to get a CTO in who's very good at it. Okay.
Correct.
And if I'm getting a CTO, I need to get someone who can deliver and build what I want, and not say I want somebody under 10 lakhs. And I have seen we have a recruitment company also running. So we have a lot of people coming in and saying, hey, our budget is 10 lakhs and this is what I want. This is another thing that I strongly recommend. Don't go with your budget. The next one I see a lot of the youngsters, they especially in startup, they miss on compliances,
Right.
and they get caught somewhere in the trap of getting that sorted, paying penalties at the end of the year. It's so good that they're focused on technology, okay, what they are trying to build or their product they're trying to build, and they think that these are not important. But with all our systems getting better, and this can be achieved by simply outsourcing it to better people. Yeah. And the last thing is building strategic partnerships. Instead of adding fixed cost, try to make your company initially highly variable, which means that if you want to scale down, it's easy to scale down. And if you want to scale
Correct.
up, also, it's easy.
Easy.
Once you are in a profit zone and you see the roadmap really moving forward beautifully, you keep on adding your
Keep
people,
an
fixed
eye.
costs, or buying officers. I have even seen people, once they get the first funding, they set a high salary for themselves. They set a nice, beautiful car for themselves. I strongly suggest that extend these liberties after you are at a in a safe zone, because they run out of cash again, and then they have to EMIs and so on and so forth. So my common observations, this is based on my common observations. Yeah,
What you call delayed gratification.
absolutely. Delayed as much as possible. Yeah.
Right. Right. No, no. Valid thoughts. And I mean, how do you go about it? I mean, do you normally, uh, especially in the roles that you take up as a mentor, and are you kind of strict with them that they should make it happen, or how does it happen, or do you allow them to choose? How is your way of going about it?
So if you really look at entrepreneurs, they think they know everything.
Right.
You know, when they sign up with you, they are very flexible. Okay, they say yes, we need this, we need that, we do that, we do that. But when you come up with solid strategies which you bound together, they start with them, but go back to things that are very few of them understand the value of mentorship. Okay, so for me, I try to be as far as possible a friend. That's why I call myself CEO Mitra.
CEO
Yeah.
Mitra.
I don't want to be standing above them and putting a disciplined approach. It doesn't work. Yeah.
Right.
But if you're walking along with them and listening to them and then cajoling them to say, hey, what are you in for if you do this? So I always work on scenarios. I tell them that, okay, let's go with you. Now, what does it happen? Put this in number form. And once they start trying to put in number form, they begin to realize that things are not going the right way. So then they start looking at what you have to propose, and that becomes a little easier to let's say handle.
Mm.
No, so that's and the other thing that I always tell people whom I advise is first start looking at sales, because you can have people, you can have the best product, you can have a best office infrastructure, everything, IT, but if you don't have sales, okay, if you don't have clients coming in, it's not going to work. So the
Right.
first thing that I ask them to put place is a go to market strategy which will actually build things on the top of the sales funnel. So
Mm.
if you want 10 let's say customers down, you need to have 90 on the top of the sales funnel, because I have seen most of the entrepreneurs today take business because they have nothing else to get on to. Okay,
Right.
payment terms are bad. Client has got a bad attitude, is treating them badly. Okay, the value system is not being understood by the client. They're making them change things frequently, asking for
Correct.
too much, paying for less, and so on. So all this happens when you are going after very few prospects. But if you have a lot on the sales funnel, so my focus is one is I help them to ensure a long-term cash funding, and then I
Right.
help them build that sales funnel. And the lastly, ensure that people retention is really high. People many times they don't realize the value of people retention, and that's something that is very critical. I always say, if all your people are out of your sitting out of the office, okay,
Right.
they can be the best, but you can't do anything with just machines and infra and your furniture and everything. They can be really beautiful, but it's not going to carry you anywhere, right? So
Yeah.
people make a huge difference to organizations.
Great, Subbu sir. Okay, so you mentioned that you are an outsourced CEO. So how does this work? I mean, if let's say an entrepreneur is looking at scaling up profits, and I mean scaling up their turnover and profits, how does the role of an outsourced CEO work out in such situation? Typically, one would think that the CEO has to be someone who's part of the company, and how, I mean, or have I not understood outsource CEO properly? So if you can just explain this.
Yeah. So I'd love to share that with you, Vipul. So actually, I would like to use the word virtual CEO and not an
Virtual
outsourced
CEO.
CEO.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
So when I say virtual, I'm actually available for the company uh, for all the days, working
Okay.
days, on telephone, on email. Okay. Plus,
Okay.
I normally offer 1 day or 2 days where I have meetings with them. I go out on client calls with them, do whatever is needed to get them to the next step. Okay. And what I'm offering is not just me alone as a virtual CEO. My plan is to try and bring in a lot of experienced people. Okay. If you look at today, people who are at the corporate leadership level, you talk to them and they envy entrepreneurs actually. Okay,
Yeah,
because
I agree.
they work in a boundary environment. Their decision making is limited to a certain level. Okay, and for me I think it was very joyful to come out of that boundary condition and be a virtual CEO and start working in my terms. And they bring in each of these virtual CEOs. They would bring in, let's say, for example, there is a pharma, very senior person in pharmaceutical. Okay, he carries how to build a factory. He knows
Right.
exactly which are the compliances that need to be done. He knows exactly how the distribution networks have to be, where the export markets are. I mean, he brings us so much of domain expertise that
Right.
if he's getting into a startup which is focused on pharmaceutical, okay, even by being away, he can bring so much of value to the enterprise. And it definitely doesn't need him to be sitting on the top of the enterprise there. In fact, give the enterprise that freedom. And then once a month, imagine a brainstorming session where the entire management team from the startup and the domain expert are sitting together, where he's a virtual CEO. And he's able to crack many of their knots in a very short time. Okay.
Right.
And he just need to say, hey, I know this person, go and meet him. Okay. Just like we do in BNI, right? We say,
Correct.
just go and meet, use my reference. I'm sure they are going to help you. He's built so much of goodwill. And now it's time to, let's say, monetize that or put that into
Right.
good use. Yeah. And that's exactly what a virtual CEO does. So for me, I mean, even getting funding, for example, he's been through that for his three companies. He knows who are the investors, who are the angel investors. He knows what works in a pitch deck. What is
Correct.
it that an investor is looking for from the other side?
Right.
Always startups make their deck based on what they think is great, but when the investor looks at it, there are so many flaws that they take out. And but imagine a virtual CEO
Right.
able to catch these flaws because he has gone through that process twice or thrice, and it's more well prepared before it is presented to people. Also, getting right people. Many times, he has so much good connect that he can say, hey, I know of somebody who could fit into that role. He's an expert, or even bring a consultant into the company who can quickly solve these kind of issues.
Hmm.
So that's the value of a virtual CEO, in my opinion, and that's how I see. And if you look at the way I'm structuring myself is, I'm first trying to deliver the virtual CEO role myself first, as to and my focus is engineering, capital equipment, machinery manufacturers, which is what I have done all my life. Okay, so I know a lot of people in pharma, food, chemical, where I can open doors for machinery manufacturers if they are selling to these industries. And there are great people who are better than me, perhaps. So I want to create a ecosystem of these virtual CEOs, which is available to people. Yeah, with CEOs who can pay them maybe 1/5 of what they would pay to an actual CEO,
Actually.
because it's only one day a month, and still get the best. Yeah.
Well, sounds really exciting. I mean, the virtual CEO concept sounds very exciting. But tell me, how is it catching up in India? I mean, is it something that uh, is prevalent in India? I mean, I haven't heard too many companies have this. What is your experience in terms of this concept being adopted in India by entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So I don't think it's so common. Okay, virtual CFOs are very common. Okay.
CFOs are,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, and but what I would say is, for me, as I said, Meyer and Vidono, which is M+V in Delhi, that has been a motivation. In fact, they do this on a large scale, but
Right.
they are focused on foreign companies coming to India. Okay,
Correct.
they don't work with local Indian companies and SMEs and startups. And I'm sure that the big four are offering many of these services under their consulting portfolio. But again, how many startups or SMEs can actually afford a big four?
Big Four, yeah.
Uh, I mean, I always think about this like, let's say a villager comes from a village and walks across a mall. Uh, Actually, the price in the mall may be less, okay,
Yeah.
because of mass buying or organized buying. But there is a deterrent because of that big building, that acquisition building, that the person doesn't even want to enter the premises because he thinks this is not for me, right? Similarly, a
Yeah.
lot of
Agree.
SMEs, they think that maybe these large firms are not for me. And also, I'm sure that they are, the big four are very expensive. I'm here to offer something similar, and for that, what I've really done is I'm building an ecosystem where I have partnerships. I'm not hiring people on my So my fixed
Right.
cost is negligible, and
Right.
I have a small team inside with project managers, these kind of things. So I do believe it's a really good value system that we bring to SMEs entrepreneurs. And my target is also now going to be small MNCs, and we have started writing to them, reaching out to them via LinkedIn, and I've been getting some good response too. Yeah.
Okay. So, typically, what are the kind of companies that you prefer to work with? I mean, the as your customers, what kind of entrepreneurs, or is there a ticket size that you have, or how does that work?
So for me, the large companies and mid-sized firms. So I would say when I say I would eliminate everybody above 100 crore kind of turnover, I don't do that. I also eliminate startups which have, more than say 25 crore of startup funding already received. I don't go there. Okay. And so my big targets are small MNCs who have between 25 million to about 100 million euro in turnover. These are basically family-owned companies in Europe. They are very
Correct.
specialized in their machinery building. And today, if you see, thanks to Modi and thanks to the way that we have built our reputation, a lot of people want to move from China to India now. Okay,
Right.
of course, I think Indonesia, Vietnam, they took some early advantage from us, but
Correct.
things are shaping for us now. A lot of people are looking at India, and that's the one segment that we are looking at. The other segment is startups which want funding.
Right.
Is what I'm looking at, because nobody wants to offer funding to a startup which is still in a pilot phase. Where they're not
Yeah.
ready finished their pilot, and that's a gap that I'm looking at. And of course, with SMEs, I'm looking at people who are between 5 and say 50 crore kind of turnovers. Yeah, I want to help people who need help.
Yeah.
Where there is not much help available. Yeah, this is where I want to position CEO Mitra. Yeah.
So, and you have another role as a business coach and life coach. So, do you kind of combine all of these capabilities when you to your customers? Do you kind of have the same customers, where you're the coach, and then you help them raise funds, and all of these things? I mean, does that happen together in some cases at least?
Yeah, so I'll answer your first part of the question. So, life coach is something that I'm trained to do, but I'm not doing it
Or
because
not
it
doing
gets
it?
very emotional sometimes with people,
Right.
and and my time bandwidth doesn't allow me to do
Yeah,
that.
I know.
Also, I think for a life coach, an additional qualification where you understand the psychology of human beings would be a great advantage. So I'm not going into that space. But business coach, yes. I want to give you an example of a very senior leader who came from a very large facility management company. Okay, I have a nice testimonial also from him on my YouTube channel.
Right.
So typical concerns are, how do I make it? How do I go to the next level in my organization? So when you do coaching, coaching is different from mentoring.
Yeah.
Coaching is when you don't tell the person that this is your solution. It's like a doctor who says, what is it that is happening to you? And they say, okay, so these are the medicines you write down and they have it and do it. Or a nutritionist who says, okay, these are the diets that you need to do, and but it doesn't work in normally in coaching like that, because people, if you tell them what to do, they do that for a week and then again they're back to square one.
Yeah.
What happens in coaching is you actually go into the persona of that person by asking and probing him, and not giving him a solution, not giving him your solution, okay, but trying to
Right.
find out what he feels is good for him. And that's what I do with leaders
Business.
now. Okay, I intend to. So I always tell myself that I'm someone who leads leaders from capacity to potential. Capacity is what we are doing today, and many of us, because we keep running from one day to the other, time manages us, and we are not realizing that we are still at capacity. But if you just stop and start asking yourself, what more am I capable of? That's when your journey to being going to the potential of what you can do happens to us. So that's a part of it. For the funding part, of course, I do it very differently. I have two amazing partners who work along with me. One of them is based out of Chennai, and he owns a 200 crore venture capital fund under the name of Series One, and the other one is ex CEO of Mumbai Angels. So we have formed a team of three people uh, under the brand name of Pitcher, which is something that we are trying to promote in a big way. So that's one. There are three elements to the funding. So this is one element which helps me to regularize the funding process if at all we get a client with whom we find an investor. Okay. The
Right.
other one is I'm setting up experts or from the different industries. Mostly they are like CEOs or directors of companies who bring domain expertise, and
Yeah.
I call them invest mentors. Okay,
Right.
because they are investors. I tell them that look, you get money into a virtual fund, which is like a Excel sheet. They don't pay money to me at all, and that amount, what we do is we do crowdfunding for startups.
Okay.
So let's say we have 20 people who are invest mentors, and we bring eight or nine of them who are interested in a particular startup. We evaluate the pitch first, okay? Out of 10 pitches, we only take one forward. Today you have pitches in random. You get one pitch a day, every day. Everybody wants funding, yeah. So the decision comes after the three of us sit down and say, okay, this is one that looks good to take forward, and
Right.
then we present this to these investors, and then there is crowdfunding happening, and we only work on a range where it is from let's say 25 lakhs to a crore kind of funding. So it is seed capital, and the next level when they are meant, and we attach one of these investors into that company as a virtual CEO. So that's the equation that we have in total. And the third element, what we have brought in is there is a company called InMergers. It's a blockchain platform for investors and investment seekers. And it's a company operating, registered in Singapore and operating out of Vietnam.
Okay.
So people, investors and investment seekers can put their profiles onboarded over there. And that helps them to find better options, both for funding and for investment, if you look at the other side. So this ecosystem is still under, let's say, WIP for me.
Right.
And we have been looking at, a lot of pitches. We have already almost reached funding one of the, let's say, good pitch decks and all that. So I keep meeting once a week, at least one startup, and we try to onboard at least one invest mentor every 15 days.
Wow.
I think in 2 years, this ecosystem should work really well. Yeah.
So, Subbu, we were talking about how you are a ace networker and the fact that, you're helping hundreds and hundreds of young entrepreneurs. As you brightly mentioned, the age limits have, drastically reduced of networkers. So, can you walk us through your journey of being a business networker and specifically in BNI?
Yeah, so it's very interesting because I never thought that I would be doing this kind of role in BNI at all. It's a very time-consuming one for sure. But
Yeah.
if you really look at when it started, there was a time when I said let me look at CEO Mitra as an option. Okay, this was actually about almost 4.5 years back, and the first thing we did was to set up a recruiting company as a part of the consulting, which my wife runs now. But before I could actually set up CEO Mitra, I got this call from the BNI leadership to be a part of. This was Abhijit Baum at that time, another very brilliant person in my life. Yeah, and he said you should be a ambassador. I said, okay, I'm going to be in consulting. I'm going to be on my own. Let me also try this out. So I took up the ambassador role, and yeah, I think in 3 months with Bharat Jitani, I became the DC of Enrich, and I
Right.
still love that chapter. They are full of high energy guys. The change happened when there was a leadership change. Again, that was in 3 months, and Hemu came and said, "Hey, Subbu, you need to be the senior director consultant and taking charge of 4 chapters out of 8 in Northeast." And I was not sure because even then I thought this was not for me. I mean, I knew how BNI worked, and I thought this was not for me. But then I slept on it overnight, and the next day morning, I don't know why I said yes. I said yes to it, And since then, one goal that I've been pursuing is 1,000 crore and not just members. I really believe if you're in BNI, you must make money. Okay?
Right.
Otherwise, just being a member doesn't really make sense. So again, I think in total of 1 year, I moved from a member to ambassador to DC to LDC to area director. I just got lucky also because Abhijit moved out. And I learned a lot from Abhijit in terms of networking. I used to be I think I'm a little bit of a introvert and not an extrovert. I can be an extrovert when I want to be. That is how it is now. But again, we don't learn networking in school or college, and I think that's extremely important for. In fact, I would say that we should run this in BNI in colleges and schools to at least give them some kind of exposure to networking. So I took charge when it was about 360 members. We took it up to 640 in 18 months. That was a phenomenal growth we had. We launched another 8 chapters actually, being to 16. And then we had pandemic. We went down again to below 600. Now we are at 750 almost, launching one more chapter. So 780 or 785, soon to touch 100. So during this entire journey, what I realized is you're changing lives. I've
Right.
seen I've seen people come in as I'm just going to start with digital marketing now, and I'm just 1 year in it, and in 3 years they're making tons of money. I know of a doctor who's into beach therapy,
Mm.
and in 2 years I saw him buying a Mercedes.
Right.
Okay? And I'm so excited with this way that this BNI as a platform can transform people. But this is all about engaging also in the platform. No?
Right.
So I think my BNI journey has been very exciting. And for me personally, how it has impacted, I have set up. If you look at my structure, I've got about 40 partners who work along with me. They are chartered
Yeah.
accountants, company secretaries, language specialists, and so on. And I've got 9 country partners who work along with me. And this would not be possible if I, Subbu, as a individual, can go and say that, I need to partner with you. One, the duration and the time gap would have taken years for me, whereas I've done this in about 2 years now. All these partnerships, and so I'm globally known. A lot of I'm really globally known in the market and
Correct.
within BNI, and that really helps a lot for me. So it has impacted me both by way of my happiness quotient and also by way of my business quotient. Yeah.
You know, being a member, a director, consultant, leader of a region, and a successful business owner yourself, how to balance this role, Subbu sir? I mean, what is the secret? इस किस चक्की का आटा खाते हैं आप? To use uh, Sholay terminology. How do you balance all of this?
So I'll tell you, I've thought about this a lot. What do I do? I really don't do much. Okay. A few things that have gone into my system right from the time, as I said, I worked with the Germans and the Europeans. One thing I learned is the value of time. I mean, if you look at the real asset you have in this world, which is diminishing all the time, okay,
Correct.
and which you can't expand at all, you can't buy, is time. Okay. So how
Correct.
we actually put that time to use is, I think, the whole story about a life being led for success or for just being run, being somebody who has just run. And that's what make, I think, leaders and others follow us, right? So for me, I use two tools which are really, really strong, which is one is OneNote, which captures all my to-dos. So, and the other one is Microsoft Outlook calendar. So
Right.
what is not on my calendar doesn't get done. Yeah. So
Right.
if someone calls me and says, "Hey, can I come and meet you?" Uh, I need to have the courage to say no.
Yeah.
When I see that that meeting is not going to add value to anyone else or to me. Either way, it has add value to some human being or it has got to add value to me.
Correct.
Otherwise, we should be able to say no, because there are a lot of people who love to just come chit chat and just move on and work
Correct.
around that. So that's something. The other one is the art to delegate, and I think I do this really really well. So let's say, for example, I mean, example would be I've started recently a foreign language institute with the brand name Native. And I was actually encouraged by a BNI member called Purvi. And she came in and said, "Hey, Subbu, why don't we do this?" I said, "Will you run it? I'm ready to put money. I'm ready to be like a mentor at the back, but I can't run it." I was very honest with her, saying, "I don't have the time to do it, but can you run it? I'm here to back you." And she said, "Why not? I love the way that you are doing things and I'd like to do it." And today we are already in a joint venture partnership now, 50-50. And we started getting a lot of response. It's only 3 months into the business and we are getting a lot of response. And I'm just standing on the fence and being available and not trying to. So one big element, if you look at it, is trust.
Right.
If you can't trust, you can't delegate. Yeah, and it goes to BNI also. The way I do BNI here, I have some amazing backend people, starting from Pankaj, Sanjay, Kedar, my SDCs, DCs. I mean, I trust them, and I don't even check on them. But I have one monthly meeting that gets us all aligned, and so and everything is delegated. So, for example, if you want to, if I don't interfere in launch. Okay, there is Baljit who takes care of launch independently. Yeah,
Right.
same thing goes in my organization. Pitcher, I've got someone heading that activity. I've got someone heading Antal separately, which is the recruitment division. I don't even know what happens there. They are a separate team sitting in a separate office working on it. So if you can really trust and delegate, I think that is the biggest way, and that's the only way I still find time to watch one movie a week. I watch 1.5 hours of Netflix every day. This
Wow.
is my
Okay.
me time. I need to. That makes me happy. So it charges me to run it to the next level. Yeah.
Right. 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 So let's take a question from on the community which has come, which is watching you live. So the question is, how can small businesses compete with larger established players in the industry? I'm not sure whether this is something you'll be able to answer offhand, considering uh, you know it will vary from industry to industry. But some general tips if you can give, because this is a question from Alia.
Okay. So Alia, that's a very good question. Okay. So the two things that come to my mind straight away. One is even if you have one client, give him top level service. Treat him really royal. And I want you to know that most of the big businesses also started really, really small. Okay. I mean, if you look at even Infosys, I think they started out of a small office with hardly any amount money. Okay. But I'm sure they did I don't know the real fact, but I'm sure they treated their first client really, really, really well. Because one happy client can bring you 50 more clients. And I want to give you an example into this also. We in our recruitment division, we have a client called AQM. Okay. And we have some testimonials coming from him, come out of and put on our YouTube also. It's available on channel. What he's saying is, he came to us. He has seen many bigger organizations, like he's talking about ABC consultants. He's been with so many of them. Okay, and then he came to us and he said, "I want to hire this 40 lakh kind of person." And what my team did was they found exactly the right person. It took time, but they worked very sincerely, very diligently. And remember, when you're small, you have flexibility. Okay, you don't
Correct.
have somebody defining how you have to do things. You can
Right.
expand your service and deliver more. Okay,
Correct.
so we brought in just one candidate and he got hired. Okay, and this is exactly what the client is telling you on the video testimonial on our YouTube. So you can differentiate yourself very easily. A large company has got inertia. They've got so many people working down. They have very little control on how the service is going to look like. They have
Correct.
processes which manage things very well. But at the same time, their flexibility
Flexibility.
to a client is very different. So you can really build the first level of success for you by building high quality of service. Yeah,
Service.
that's the thing that really comes to my mind. Yeah.
Fantastic. Alia, I'm sure, is happy to hear. I mean, it's all about fantastic service and also being flexible to be able to meet the client's requirement, and therefore you keep getting repeat business. Uh, Subbu sir, one question I always have, I always ask people like you who have achieved a lot is what are the daily rituals or practices that you follow, which helps you remain at the top of your game?
So I don't do something daily, but Sunday is a day when I realign myself. Okay.
Right.
So I don't know if you have all read a book called 168 Hours. It's an amazing book. Okay. It's written by Laura Vanderkam. She's a woman who gets stuck into her daily routines and time manages her and she's not managing time. Okay. And if you really realize and look into your day, you realize that yes, time did manage you and you had little control of how time was managed by you. Okay.
Correct.
And so Sundays we work on a 5-day week. Okay. So Saturdays are days when I still have my personal meetings and whatever work gets stretched or the week gets into a Saturday, both personal and official. But Sunday is the day when I have this 168 hours template and I realign my time and work that I need to do in the next 5 days or 6 days. Even on a Sunday, I have a slot where I say I must go for a movie that day. Okay, that slot is fixed and I look for a good movie to,
Right.
so be seen. So that's one thing that I do, and then I align. The next step is to align my calendar. I call people and say, hey, I need to change this time. I need to do this. Is it okay? And so on. Thanks to my role, normally people are flexible to me, so that's one big
Yeah.
advantage. And gratitude to all those people who work like that with me. So, and I have the other thing I do is to bring up an idea, debate that once a month with for example, in my company, I have a core team, and in BNI, I have a strategy team. Okay, I pick the
That's
best of leaders into that team. I have 9 leaders from Northeast region whom I call as a strategist, and
right.
everything is delegated, okay, to them. At the end of the meeting, I only have some pointers which I need to follow up once in a while with them and say, hey, what's the status on that? And
Right.
and if you care for your people, they care for you and they deliver, for you also. So
That's
that's the way I run my day. I don't have very specific schedules of every day, and I have a simple WhatsApp reporting system for my
yeah.
people. I don't like cameras and the other thing that normally I see in many places. In fact, I like to mention this here that I went into the office of a very large company. The owner is sitting in front of me, talking to me, and then he suddenly is raising his face up, down, and I'm thinking, what's happening above me? And I quickly turn my back and see there's a whole lot of cameras at the back. So that element of trust again was totally missing. And in my life, I never loved to work when people watch over me. I never give my best. Okay, I'll never innovate if I'm not trusted, right?
Right.
So I think that's the thing that I carry along, which brings higher productivity from people. But simple tools, calendar and OneNote and tool to manage too many things. If you try to do also, I think you will fail.
Correct. So calendar, OneNote, trust, delegation, and Sunday movies. These are the 5 things that you work with.
Yes, correct.
So, Subbu sir, we are coming to the close, almost close to the hour that we had requested from you. So, any closing thoughts that you have for people who may have joined recently, just joined the podcast? So is there anything that you would like to leave them with, so that they can, prosper on their entrepreneurial journey? And if you can share your wisdom and thoughts.
So I'm going to share what has worked for me. Okay.
Right.
So spending a lot of time in planning with your team is going to make your execution very easy. So until you are sure that the plan is really looking good, I mean, when I say a plan, it's not just about what do you want to achieve in sales and so on, but it is also going up to where does the cash come from? How does the company get? What kind of people are going to be there? What kind of markets you're going to be doing? I mean,
Yeah.
really get into a very detailed plan. Spend a lot of time there. When you feel really you can visualize the end today in 2.5 years or 2 years, then you start getting into the execution mode. Because this is something that I didn't do when I started my entrepreneurship when I was 30. Okay. I got stuck. I just got plain lucky that I got acquired, and I didn't have to struggle in that way. Otherwise, imagine I had not got acquired, I would have been on a different struggle journey in my life. Yeah. The other thing is, of course, put your vision, mission, and values in place, because this is something that it's like a document that you go back and check. What is it that I need to take as a decision when I'm at that point? The value system is going to tell you, does it align with what you want to do, or does it not align with what you want to do? Okay. The next one is take care of your team. I know, for example, when I was with Mitra and I started on my journey, there were almost 12 people who moved from that company and worked along with me. And four of them worked without salaries for the first 3 months. They just said, they want to be with you. I mean, take care of the people, they take care of your company. So don't put so much of thought into it. I mean, just be there for them. I mean, that's the way it is. And from the BNI experience, I want to share that, the joy of giving. I mean, you need to feel this. Okay. Most of the time we say, hey, maine ye kiya hai, what am I getting back in return? We think about this all the time. If we can manage our mind to stop thinking about the second part, what am I getting, and just plain give, I can tell you it comes back in manifold, and it has happened to me. Okay. That is what has helped me build my business, right? And fortunately for me, in my first part of my journey, I was only looking at getting good vendors, so I was only giving. It was circumstantial, and I was not thinking of getting any business from there, but it helped me a lot in my entrepreneurial journey now. Okay. And the last two things I want to address is think about scale. Because if you are not thinking about scale, you'll likely charges that someone bigger will come in, and you'll drown, not be visible anymore. Yeah. If you want to be an entrepreneur, think about something you can scale, or at least think of plan A, plan B, plan C, where at some point you're exiting to a bigger player or whatever. But the plan that you make at the beginning, which I was talking about, has to include that. And the last one, today, if you're not using technology, like if you're not having a great website, if you're not using the best tools like SAP, or if you're not into CRM, yeah, you must adapt technology. Without technology, it's like working in a blind room.
Right. On that note, I thank you a lot for giving your time. I know you are extremely busy with the coming up of your launch of a new chapter, and all the various activities that you're doing. It's the beginning of the month, so that's also a busy time for senior people in BNI. But you still gave me that 1 hour. I really appreciate that, Subbu. Thanks a lot, and I'll look forward to interacting more with you in future, and probably come back another time to share some more thoughts.
Anytime, Vipul. Was I enjoyed every moment of that. Thank you for giving me that opportunity. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Same to you.